Welcome into another episode of Nate Hit the Foul Pole. This is a different type of episode because it's being recorded on a Saturday instead of a Friday. Yesterday, we had our live stream of Game 1 of the resumed suspended game against the Nationals, and here we are. So welcome on in, and I'm Matthew Pine here with my co-host, Zach Goodman. Zach, how are you doing?
Matt, I neglected to tweet out the link, so I'll be doing that, but I'm good. I'm ready to go. And
I can talk over you. I think we're podcast pros by this point.
yeah, that was a mistake on my part. But ready to do another good pod?
Sure. So yeah, a little bit of an abbreviated pod this week. We did have our live stream, as I mentioned yesterday, so go ahead and check that out on our YouTube feed. We had Ryan Blake on, obviously the owner of the Orioles Fan Problems Twitter account, also writes for a prospect site. And it was a 6-2 victory for the Orioles. So we had a nice time bringing in a lot of new people and new fans to the show, some new comments. So we certainly appreciate that. But today we just wanted to do a few things, starting off with a recap of the Orioles' past week.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a interesting week. Last night was not much fun, but the rest of the week was, in the best way to put it, exceeded expectations. Everyone played well. It was a team effort. It was a lot of fun. This is the most fun I've had watching Orioles baseball in a lot of years now. Every night you just look forward to a win. I've never gone into every night since about maybe 2014, 2016 and thought, wow, I think we actually have a chance to win this game. And we're facing good pitching. We're facing good lineups. And we're still finding ways to win.
Yeah, I think the Phillies series kind of cemented in many people's eyes this team being good. I mean, even the series last weekend against the Nationals, but going off that 6-game win streak, obviously instills a lot of hope, a lot of excitement around the team. Phillies fans weren't necessarily very happy with their output and their outcomes. One of those games was really strange with the extra innings, the ball dropping in the infield. So just kind of a strange week overall, but good one for the Orioles.
Yeah, I watch a Phillies fan on YouTube. His name is Hunter Brody. A lot of you might know him. He does sports talk with Broads, and he's a podcaster like us, and he was very upset with the Phillies' performance. I think most Phillies fans should be. They're clearly underperforming. This is a much better team than what we're seeing from the Phillies right now. Besides Nola and Wheeler and even Eflin, it's just the bullpen is horrendous. The rest of the pitching rotation is just not there. The lineup, besides Realmuto and Harper, is not really supplemented by anyone else good. It's kind of a train wreck of a team right now. They've consistently been a bottom feeder for a few years now, and the rebuild kind of. I'm not really sure where to put it yet. I'm not sure if it really succeeded. We're gonna have to see about that. But I think the Phillies are in a tough spot because they're paying Harper so much money. It's gonna be hard to sign other free agents, but it's not incredibly hard to bring people into Philadelphia. It's just hard to pay them as much money when you're paying Bryce Harper all that money.
Yeah, I think if you look at their roster overall, I mean, there's a lot of talent there. Like you said with their lineup, besides the big two, but you still expect Rhys Hoskins to be at least formidable. You expect Gene Segura to kind of have the output, maybe not that he did with the Diamondbacks, but still be one of your big boppers. They just brought up Alec Boehm, so hopefully he can kind of provide some juice to that lineup. But yeah, like you said, the Orioles have been facing good pitching. Obviously, the last night game was a disaster, but coming off Steven Strasburg, you thought, with a 1-0 lead, him coming out of the game, you thought, okay, we're good to go. And but it is what it is. It's just one game, only counts as one loss. And to me, at least, I think the most encouraging sign is the offense so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. There's hitters on this team right now that can actually produce, which hasn't been there for a few years. Basically in 2018, 2017, those kind of years, we put together lineups that were just not very good, not a lot of guys. But the general basis of this lineup this year, there's from 1 to 9 is a guy who can produce. And that's just a difference from previous years. That's, I think, why we're seeing so much of a difference. And I really got to give so much credit to Sig and Mike Elias and all the other people who have just changed their approach at the plate. There's clear player development going on right here. Everyone's gotten better. Santander, Nunez, Ruiz, so many guys have just taken a step forward. And this lineup is kind of dangerous from 1-9. Even look at Chance Sisco. Sisco was never a guy who would be a feared hitter in previous years. This year, he's putting up some really nice numbers. He's walking a bunch. It's just a much better year so far than we've had.
Yeah, I think Chad Sisco is my favorite Oriole at the moment. Yeah,
I don't blame you.
But I think that's a valid point because I think not that you think this could happen with every player, but I think looking out for the future, any waiver claim, any trade you make, any minor leaguer that you promote, putting them into the same system, they should have an easy way to find success. And I think that's the most important thing. So, especially if you go to free agency and you get like a Carlos Correa or whoever it may be, you can expect big things out of them.
Yeah, I got to be honest right here. I think that this shortened season has really given me an appreciation for the long season in the way of waiver claims. There are so many guys that get DFA'd over a 162 game period, and that the Orioles can pick up and slot right into our lineup or our pitching staff and actually be helpful to the team, maybe a 1 or 2 WAR player. And that's just really helpful when you're a rebuilding team. You can pick up a guy who's maybe a castaway from a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, but can really help your team, especially bullpen arms, even starting pitching arms like Wojciechowski last year. But if you look up and down this roster, it's just full of waiver claims. And that's really what it is. It's Ruiz, Alberto, Nunez, all waiver claims. So, when you see all that success, it kind of makes me feel that, I wish waivers were a little more active this year because you can really find some good players.
Yeah, it's the thing. I think not many people appreciate them, or you hear a name when they're claimed and you're like, I have no idea who that is to the average fan. But Renato Nunez, I mean, he's going to be probably consistent 30 to 40 home run hitter every year in a normal 162 season. And yeah, like you said, we'll segue this in a couple of minutes to the Orioles being buyers or sellers. But before we do that, I did want to talk about some recent roster moves made just in the last hour. The newly acquired Jorge Lopez has been activated from the injured list, and we expect him to pitch pretty soon here. In his stead, we have seen Austin Hayes go to the injured list with a broken rib, and then they were also recalled Cedric Mullins to fill his spot.
Yeah, some interesting moves. This was ultimately kind of confusing to me. I'm not sure where Austin Hayes fractured that rib. That's going to be interesting to see what Brandon Hyde says about that. Currently, the word is there's no timetable on that yet, according to Brandon Hyde. But this is really unfortunate. I mean, Austin Hayes is just such a force in this lineup, even though he's not hitting right now. He's been hitting 282 over the last 11 games, even though his season numbers don't look that good. And he provides so much value in the field. So to see him go down is just really heartbreaking to me. He's my favorite player on this team right now. Even though he has been struggling a bit. So that loss is huge. I'm kind of glad to see Jorge Lopez added. It's about time. We got rid of Keegan Aiken and Cody Carroll as well last night, and he will take one of their spots. So, it's a pretty non-surprising roster move there. But I was really shocked to see Austin Hayes go in the IL, and I really don't know where he made that happen. A fractured rib is a big deal. He's been running and playing 100% to my, vision. So I don't know where that happened, but it's definitely concerning.
Yeah, and it's concerning, especially, you don't want to re-aggravate that, bring him back too soon. It's probably not a great injury to have when you're swinging a bat. But, we hope, I should say, for him to have a speedy recovery and to be back in this lineup, hopefully by the beginning of September.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I mean, we need him in this lineup, even though, he's not playing as well as he maybe could be. I still don't think there's any clear better option in center field. We're now going to be starting Mullins and Velasquez, two guys that just don't swing that well. Yeah, I mean, even when Austin Hayes is not swinging the bat well, he's still swinging the bat better than Velasquez and Mullins.
Yeah. Yep, very true. So we've talked about some roster moves. We've also discussed the recent hot week for the Orioles, now standing at 11-8, I want to say. Zach, do you think we should be, because the trade deadline is in 2 weeks, do you think we should be buyers or sellers?
This is a tough point in the Orioles rebuild, I think. It could go either way, but I'm gonna explain this in a second, but I think we should kind of just stand pat right now. We've gotten a lot of questions about this, me and you, about whether we think the Orioles should be buyers or sellers. I think our best plan of action is to stand pat, because right now I think we're in a position where we don't really know where the rebuild is at. I don't really think that this rebuild is over. It's clearly not. I mean, we don't really have an elite talent pipeline yet. We're getting there. We're at ninth right now in the farm system rankings. We're an up and comer, but it's not there. The young talent really has not gotten here yet. In the guys of like Adley and Mountcastle and Kerstad and all the guys that we expect to be big players for this team, they're not even here yet. And the team is playing so well with a bunch of waiver claims and DFAs and a bunch of just cast-offs from other teams. And that's great. I mean, that's exactly what we want to see. That means Mike Elias is doing his job. I tweeted last night, I think he looks like a genius for putting this together. I mean, he's put together an amazing roster with nothing. So you can't buy, because if you buy, you're going to be trading prospects who you're going to need for the future. But you can't really sell right now because we're in a playoff position currently.
Yeah, for me at least, I don't really take that much into consideration. I don't necessarily view this team as a World Series caliber. I think in any given season, especially a 60-game season, a lot of weird stuff can happen. Like I could see the Orioles make a playoff run. I could absolutely see them do that. I would probably be in the same boat saying stand pat, but maybe for a little bit different reason. And I would probably hedge towards the selling. And I would just say, I don't know what the return looks like at this point for certain players if you can only trade from 60-man rosters. I know Elias has been taking advantage of the player to be named later, which is great. I think that's a phenomenal idea and really thinking outside the box. But I think if you wait to the wintertime, you could see a much better return for an Alex Cobb or for another guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like you said, with the 60-man restrictions, I don't know how big of a trade deadline this is going to be. I don't think anybody really thinks this is going to be too big of a deadline. I think we're all kind of expecting maybe a few minor moves. But the reality is that you can only have one player be named later. And in general, teams are not going to be placing prospects on their 60-man to be traded immediately. That just doesn't really work out for the team. They have to release whoever they have to make room for those guys. So it's just not feasible. So it's going to be a quiet trade deadline. I think you'll see a lot more deals at the winter meetings this year as teams try to bulk up for next season. But in this weird season, I want to talk about the Orioles' playoff chances right now, because we are talking about the playoffs, and we're not that far off. We're in a position right now where we're expected to win 36 games if this pace keeps up. What do you think a playoff run looks like if the Orioles get in that position?
I would say, number one, you got to stay healthy with a lot of your guys on offense. Like Rio Ruiz got to stay healthy. Alberto's got to stay healthy. Your table setter guys that have to stay intact. I'd say that point number one. I would say the bullpen has to kind of improve a little bit. I know that obviously by last night's game, you can see like the lack of pitching depth in the bullpen is pretty evident. But I think guys like Cole Sulser and guys like Michael Givens or whoever, I think they're pretty stout for the most part. So I would just say the bullpen, and I think I don't know, it's tough because they have a lot of hard games coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I mean, they've shown so far that they can beat the Nationals, they can beat the Phillies, they can beat teams of that ilk, and the Rays especially. So you just gotta. It's hard for me. I think injuries and bullpen play the two biggest factors, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see this team as a World Series champion, like you said before. It's just not going to happen. And we got swept by the Marlins, and there are a lot of people who probably think we're in that position right now, but we aren't. It's just a harsh reality to face. As good as we've looked, it's just not happening. We don't have the depth for that, like you said. We don't have the pitching depth. But I do think this team could probably win like a wild card game. I think that's possible. I know there are no wild card games this year, but I'm saying in a normal year they probably could.
Listen,
there will be only a series this year.
It's 16 teams in the playoffs. The first round is only 3 games. That's not impossible to win 2 out of 3.
My biggest fear, though, right now, I think for the Orioles is that we get stuck in a position where we didn't make the playoffs and we didn't get enough wins to be or we got too many wins to be a top 5 pick. That's what I'm kind of concerned about because the Orioles need one of the two. They really do need one of the two.
That would be like semi-disastrous just because, like, I mean, it's really hard for me because I I have been on the train the entire time that I want the Orioles to have a top 3 pick in the draft, no matter
Yeah.
what. I think if you look Kumar Rocker,
Yeah.
Jack Leiter, Brady
Such good
House,
talent.
the high school pitcher, there's just so much pitching talent that's there. But on the other end of the spectrum, I also see the fans' point where it's like we haven't had live sports in 6 months. This brings us a little bit of excitement in a really, really crappy year. Why don't we just go for it? Now, I'm really sympathetic to that. I think that's a really interesting point. But yeah, I mean, I think the middle ground kind of being mediocre, I don't think that does anything for the future of the franchise.
Yeah. I think too that the Orioles have shown they're not really trying to win right now. The players themselves are trying to win, but the front office and the whole organization isn't.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
players, they're all individually playing for their jobs. They're playing for their lives,
Mm-hmm.
really. These are all cast-offs from other teams mostly, and there are a few homegrown talents in there as well. But most of these guys are just trying to make a name for themselves. The organization with Mike Elias and Sig, I think, are taking a little bit of a different path right now. They're kind of focused on player development at the major league level and player development at the minor league level and not really mixing them. That's why we haven't seen Ryan Mountcastle come up yet. But I think the Orioles are doing what's best for the team right now with all the decisions they're making, maybe outside of Mountcastle, but they're not making a lot of promotions. They've been stingy with the prospects they've brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it's been so far.
Yeah, I think case in point, Keegan Aiken pitched last night. He got optioned right after the game.
Yeah.
You want to see guys like that kind of stick around and at least prove themselves a little bit more than just one outing. But yeah, I don't think the front office is gung ho. This is the year we got to go out and buy all these guys.
No.
I will say, however, I'm saying the Orioles are not World Series caliber. I did put $10 on them to win the World Series. So if they did, I would be a happy and semi-rich man.
It's a massive payout, so it's worth a shot for $10.
$10
but
if they
never know.
They win,
you never know.
If they win, I get $1,600 on a $10 bet. Come on.
It's not a bad deal at all. I mean, it really is a good deal. But probably not going to win the World Series. But you never know in this weird year. No. It's just been shocking to even be where we are right now. That's the word I think it's best to describe the Orioles. Just shocking. It's weird. The Tigers are good. The Marlins are good. The Rockies are really good. The Rockies are really, really good, which is confusing to me. Even the Cubs, who I didn't think were going to be that good, are really good. So it's a weird year, clearly. Teams are not going to be selling off giant prospects for giant pitchers or like a normal year. You're not going to see a Justin Verlander kind of trade this year or a Zach Greinke kind of trade. Just a weird year. And the Orioles, I think, benefit from that a little bit. And they also have some drawbacks that take effect in that as well.
Yep. So we did want to look at the game tonight, game 2 of the 3-game weekend series with the Nationals. Looks as though, I'm going to share my screen here. Looks as though we have Patrick Corbin on the mound for the Nationals and Asher Wojciechowski on the mound for the Orioles. What do you think of this pitching matchup, Zach?
Well, Corbin, he's been all right this year. He's been, he's 2-0, so he's clearly pitching well. And he has 20 strikeouts already, which is just nuts. So he's going to be tough, but we did hit pretty well off of him in the exhibition game. That was before the season. I believe Corbin was the pitcher in that game. And we've seemed to do pretty well off lefties this year, which is something that we haven't done in the past. I think that's probably part of Chance Sisco and some of the other lefties in the lineup swinging the bat a little better. But that's just the case right now. And I think Corbin, he's not going to have a great outing. And then as far as Wojo goes, I think we'll just kind of see more of the same. I'm not sure that he's going to be great. I'm not sure he's going to be bad. His ERA's mid-3s right now. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, for some reason, all I can think of when I see Patrick Corbin is when the Yankees did their whole free agent tour and they hosted like Manny Machado and all these different guys. And I just remember like Yankees Twitter putting Corbin in the Yankees hat already. He's from like New York, I believe. So that's just
it clearly doesn't work. It clearly doesn't work.
No. Yeah. And looks like we have a lineup here as well. I can zoom in a little bit for you, but interesting to see Brian Holiday in the lineup as DH.
Yeah, so for the Orioles, leading off is Hanser Alberto, batting second, Anthony Santander, batting third, Jose Iglesias, then Renato Nunez, then Pedro Severino, Pat Valleca, Rio Ruiz, Brian Holiday, and Andrew Velasquez rounding it out. The Nationals line up as Trey Turner at leadoff spot, and then Adam Eaton, Juan Soto, Asdrubal Cabrera, Eric Thames, Luis Garcia, Carter Kieboom, Yan Gomes, and Victor Robles. So without Austin Hayes, this lineup definitely looks a little bit worse for the Orioles right now, but I do like to see Pat the Bat in there, and a bunch of the other guys have been hitting the ball well. Even Holiday has been hitting the ball really well.
Yeah. Obviously, Starlin Castro went on the DL, or the IL, I should say, for the Nationals. Luis Garcia, prospect, came up for him. Looked pretty good in the game last night, and I guess we'll see. But I don't really know a whole lot about his profile. I was just more or less saying that I don't know if it's going to be a huge drop off between Castro and him.
Yeah, I agree with that. His swing is exactly like Juan Soto. So, and clearly there's been a lot of mentoring there that's going on. They probably played together in the minors quite a bit. And he's really good. Luis Garcia is solid. The Nats don't have a good system, but Luis Garcia is really good.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on the game or the series overall, Zach?
Yeah, I do want to get a few updates on Austin Hayes. They're coming in right now from Rock Kubaco. So the first thing would be that he said, I hope Austin Hayes won't be out for very long. That probably doesn't mean much, but John Means is also the starter tomorrow for the game against Max Scherzer, so there's that as well. And then more notes on Hayes. He was hit by a pitch in the rib cage, as I think this is probably 2 weeks ago at this point, something like that. And X-rays did not show a break, and he's been playing, and he made a catch against the wall in Diamond Grab in Philly, and he's been tender, and then he was finally checked again today, and he had a small fracture. So unfortunate. Hopefully he's back soon. We really need his glove in the field, and that arm especially too.
Yeah, I think I just read the tweet and said something about just being a 10-day stint, so that's really good news. Glad to see John Means back. I didn't know he was dealing with a lot with his dad passing.
Yeah.
So glad he got to spend that time with his family, and he'll be welcome back with open arms here.
Definitely looking forward to seeing him start. He's got that new velo this year, so he didn't have it's so much luck in his first couple starts, but I think this is going to be the start that he really starts to show that he's an improved pitcher.
All right, I think that'll wrap up today's episode. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Also appreciate all the people tuning into the live stream yesterday. We'll probably be continuing to do that, and looking forward to more. As always, listen to us on Spotify and iTunes. We appreciate a 5-star review, and watch us on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.